How's it going, everybody? My name's Avid, and today, believe it or not, is Avid Adventures episode 3. I can't believe we're already at episode 3. I mean, in the first 2 episodes, we got a ton of work done. The first episode, we built out this whole town and found a way to make it turn into an evil version of itself at nighttime. In episode 2, we put in all of this foliage and built out this market square, and wow, there are a lot of people out today. What are you guys all doing? Don't you have jobs? Episode 2 then, of course, ended with our amazing time-lapse of this mansion. It was so much fun to build this thing, but there's one major problem. The mansion is completely empty. Yeah. So we need to start getting the interior of this mansion done, and then we need to create a puzzle. This puzzle is going to grant players access to an area beneath the mansion, otherwise known as the catacombs. And these catacombs are going to be the second layer of the Vilethorn Rosewood quest line. I like to build quests that have 3 layers, so this is going to be layer number 1, this beautiful town. Layer number 2 is the catacombs, and layer 3 is going to be the boss fight. So I am so excited for this episode, so let's get right into it. So if I were to pick one thing to start this episode on, I don't think it's going to be building out the interior. This is such an intimidating project. I know we're going to get to it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it in this episode. But I kind of want to think about some of the puzzles here. And I have an idea for one puzzle, so let's go quickly take a field trip. All right, we've taken a very small field trip up the cliffside here. And I've created what is probably the saddest looking dance floor you have ever seen. And the reason for that is because I kind of want to figure out how to replicate this puzzle that I've seen in other video games. I'm sure you guys have seen this puzzle too. And the way that it works is you have 2 different states for tiles that are on the ground. And when you step on one tile, like for instance, we stepped on this red wart block, it would change all of the blocks around it and the block that you just stood on. So it kind of flips their state like that. And so if I were to step on this block here, it would switch this one to blue, this one to blue, this one to red, and this one to blue, right? It does it in like a plus sign. And the goal is to turn all of the blocks over into the same color. Or maybe one of the colors, like either all red or all blue. And so I think we can do this with actually like almost no commands, very like maybe 2 or 3 commands. I guess you can't say almost nothing when there's even 1. So sorry, we're gonna do this with like maybe 3 commands. And all it's gonna take really is first to detect if a player has stepped on one of these blocks like that. And then we would do a replace command on the blocks in a plus direction to swap over all of the warped wart. What are these things called again? Nether wart and warped wart. We'd switch them using a fill replace command. And then finally, we'd have another repeat command block that's checking to see if this box is all of one block type. That isn't too hard either. So I think this is going to be one of the first or maybe the second puzzles that players encounter. And we might have a couple of these spread out. We'll see. So that's the first part, is we need to figure out how to detect if players are stepping on that. And the way that we do that is we just say, execute at the player within 10 distance if the block directly at my feet, -1 like this, is of a type wart blocks. I don't even know if I'm going to go with wart blocks, but this is really cool that you can select multiple block types just using that technique there. So let's figure out how we can do the flipping pattern now. Yep, we got it in 3. No, we got it in 2 command blocks. Definitely we aren't building a giant command block tower that is progressively getting larger as this thing becomes more complicated. But of course, with any of the things that we do on this series, things always tend to get a little more complicated than we think. So the good news is the floor is working. Watch this. I step on it, all of the blocks around me, and the one I step on, switch over, and I can jump, and that is working perfectly. But we have one problem. When I stand on this and I move to another block, nothing happens. And that's because this repeat command block is looking to see if I'm standing on any warped blocks. And the only way that this tower is going to run is if that signal goes down to low and then goes back on, and then goes low and then goes on. So the problem is if I stay on warped blocks, that signal is never going to change. So one way I thought about fixing that is using an armor stand. And whenever I stand on a warped block, I teleport the armor stand to me. And if the armor stand is also within 1 block of me, then we don't run that command. And so it turns off, and then this thing gets a chance to kind of breathe, right? The armor stand is on my face. So this is kind of an idea, but I'm finding that the armor stand positioning is really buggy. And so you actually can, on the same square, sometimes get it to double fire. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to turn a bug into a feature. And that is, I'm going to have players jump in order to activate these plates. And I think, honestly, that's really fun. I think that's actually a lot better and more interesting. So that way players are going to have to figure out the puzzle, they're going to have to jump, and if they just walk, it's like there's not enough weight or something on the floor to get it to switch over. The next thing we need to do is come up with a win condition, and also I need to figure out if I can actually beat this puzzle. So stay tuned for that, because it's going to be a little bit of time. So let me just see if I can get the win condition going, and then we'll beat this puzzle together. All right, we are back here and ready to solve this puzzle. I may have made it a little easier for myself because I think it was impossible before. I have a lot to learn about these puzzle types. But basically, we use something called execute if blocks. And the way that works is you specify an area of blocks and you match that to see if it's exactly the same as another area of blocks, which is perfect for this kind of puzzle. So if this area here is the area that's supposed to be matched, then if I step right there, that light is going to turn on. And if any of these change, then that light turns off, which is really simple. And so what's cool about that is we could even establish a pattern that needs to be the win condition. So it doesn't even have to be that all the blocks are a certain color. If we just try to jump in the middle, that light is going to turn on. So that's cool. Oh my gosh. Like we could make the floor have to look like something, you know, like the floor would be almost like a certain kind of artwork. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's going to be so cool. We are so doing that. Okay. Anyways, that's the puzzle. All right. And now that we have the basic mechanics of our puzzle finished, I think we need to actually put the puzzle into the floor of our mansion, which means we are going to do a little bit of interior to start this episode. So let's get into the time lapse. And that is the spooky-faced floor puzzle design complete. After all, what haunted mansion doesn't have a spooky-faced floor puzzle that leads you down to the catacombs beneath? But in all seriousness, what we're going to do here is there are going to be 4 books scattered throughout this mansion, and players are going to have to put together the fact that each book contains a quadrant of this puzzle. And when players actually get in here, this puzzle is going to be all jumbled up. Once the players figure out that all the 4 books combined make the floor design, then they're going to have to start hopping on this floor to change over the tiles until it looks like the books. Okay, so next on the list is to make this puzzle a little jumbled and obviously implement the jumping mechanics and get the books placed at some point in here. So let's start working on getting that going. And that is our jumbled face. And actually looks kind of cool, almost like a snake or a moth. Or we also have our 4 books here. And in each of these books, there's a whole lot of lore. And so these books are going to be scattered throughout the mansion. And that is how players are going to have to solve this. And once the puzzle does match the books, the players are going to get a key that opens a door somewhere in the cliffside, and that'll lead them down to the catacombs. All right, and the very next course of action is definitely not the interior. Don't worry. You gotta believe. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen this episode, but I need to get some strength to do it first. But no, we're gonna work on what I would say is the highest priority thing, which is getting our waterfall back. And that might sound kind of crazy because this mansion is ginormous, but remember that this mansion is gonna disappear during the day, and it's only gonna show up at night. So the way for us to get our waterfall back is to make our mansion disappear. So in order to do that, we're going to get the whole mansion into a structure block, like so. And then we are going to destroy the mansion, like so. Ah! Okay. Oh, I hope it can come back. Let's go check. Yes, that worked. Okay, let's destroy it again now. Yay! Okay, I need to do a little bit of cleanup on the backside. Okay, so here is the daytime version of our mansion, and it's pretty cool. I left the front entrance because I think that's kind of neat in the way that like players can enter this completely vacant and empty mansion. And then I also glassed over the floor so players can see the floor design. And that way, if they've been in the mansion one time and they know that the puzzle's here, they can kind of study the unfinished puzzle, and they can maybe put together a game plan for how they would finish it. So let's take a look at how the mansion turns over at nighttime. So I just hooked up our day-night cycle sensor right here, and if I just set the time to midnight, ba-boom! And it looks totally out of place, but that's the idea, you know? This town is cursed, and the mansion got the worst of it. It can only exist at nighttime while the rest of the town is in this evil, decrepit state. Oh man. So let's just see what happens when we set the time back to day. And there it goes. And now the mansion is gone and everything has to go back to normal. Yes, looks really good. Okay, perfect. So now what we're going to do is at nighttime, I'm going to summon some towers up on the ridge. And these towers are going to be casting a spell onto the mansion. And that's going to kind of connect the player with the curse of Vilethorn and that these towers are somehow a source of its power. So I've gone ahead and marked out a location for one of our towers, as well as I added a little bit of texturing to the grass here. Basically just used a bunch of bone meal, removed all the flowers. I'm starting to add a couple more of the spruce trees. So you could say I spruced it up a little bit. And then just to, you know, make things look just a little more textured and a little more natural. And these towers are going to cast a spell. There's going to be this particle beam that goes from the tower all the way to the mansion, and we're going to figure out how to do that. I have no idea how to do that, but I'm sure we can do it. And then we're going to have one here, one there, and one there. So let me just get the other two towers positioned, figure out the day-night cycle switch, and then we are going to do some work to figure out how to make that particle effect. All right, guys, the transformation of our town is 100% complete. We have our mansion, we have our towers, you see their remnants in the background, and then when the night switches over, everything changes to the second version of the town. I mean, have you ever built two towns in the same spot? Because I definitely have not, and I am now realizing this is a lot of commands and redstone. In fact, you know what? Let's go take a look at the command room. We haven't been there in a while. It's just right here. Don't worry, I'll patch that up. So most of our commands in this area have remained the same. We have one line that gets us to day, so I'll push that to stop the music that's going on upstairs. And we have another line that sets it over to nighttime. And a lot of these things we've gone over in episodes 1 and 2. But I've made this new tunnel to right beneath the mansion where we have our completed puzzle and some of the puzzle checking mechanics over there. And then I have separate tracks for the good and bad versions of the mansion. And now, well, let's hop into spectator mode and just take a quick look at the towers, because each tower also has its own track for good and evil, and we have 4 of them. Yeah, I know I said I was going to do 3, but 4 ended up looking better, and 3 had one in the center blocking my waterfall, and that is absolutely not acceptable. So, yeah, that is... I am so proud of this town, guys. Okay, so what's next? Ray tracing. That's what's next. So for those of you who don't know what ray tracing is, I'm going to get right into that. But basically what it is going to allow us to do is create particle beams from our towers all the way over there to our mansion at nighttime. And it's going to make it look like they're casting a spell over the mansion. But what does ray tracing have to do with this? And what is ray tracing? Those are all very good questions. So let's take an example here of these 2 armor stands. And I've turned on hitboxes so you can see that these armor stands are facing each other with this blue line. And what I want to do is I want to draw particles from this armor stand's head all the way to this armor stand's head. That's effectively making a laser beam, right? So I reached out to the community and they said, yeah, just import this function from this other guy and then you just have a ray tracing command. No, that's cheating. I spend my whole day copying people's code as a software engineer. This is Minecraft. This is where we're serious. So we're going to come up with our own way to do ray tracing between these 2 armor stands. So solving this puzzle is actually going to take 3 armor stands. One armor stand is going to sit at the top of one of our towers. The other armor stand is going to sit on the mansion, and then the third armor stand is going to act as the beam. And that might seem kind of complicated, but really it's not. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the teleport command to make this armor stand face that armor stand. That's the first piece of the puzzle. And the way we do that is we use the facing parameter in the teleport command, and we say face an entity. In this case, I say the nearest player. And so I've gone ahead and made 3 name tags. The beam is what's important to face that armor stand. So we're gonna click on that there. And now you can see the armor stand is actually pointing itself at me. And if I jump up here, it's gonna point upwards. And if I come down, it's gonna point down. And if I crouch, does it do it? I don't think crouching does it. So that's the first piece of the puzzle, is getting the armor stand to face the right direction. And of course, the next piece of the puzzle is to get the beam pointed in the right direction, not at the player. So all that takes is to set it pointed to an entity of type armor stand with the name Ray B. And I named this guy over here Ray B. Then the purpose of our next command is to teleport the armor stand in the direction that it is facing by a little bit. So that's how this works. And actually, we'll be able to combine both of these commands together, which makes things even simpler. So if I turn this guy on, there it goes. And now the problem is, it's gonna sit there and kind of spin, which is adorable, but also problematic. So let's take a look at how we fix that. This is where we introduce our third armor stand, which acts as an anchor to our beam. So when our beam overlaps with Ray B, we have a command here that checks to see if they are occupying the same space. And if it is, then it teleports our beam back to Ray A. So if I name this guy Ray A and start using that command, here we go. So now we should be drawing a beam, and when the beam reaches the end, it gets pushed back to the anchor. This is ray tracing. We're actually doing it. So I have no idea what I just did, but check this out. Whoa! Look at these. I don't know how I managed that. That's not the desired behavior. Okay, getting a little closer. Almost. That's the particle beam, ladies and gentlemen, and I didn't even have to steal any stinking code from the internet, so take that! All right, so obviously these armor stands are going to be invisible, but that is super easy to do, so now we need to start getting these built into the towers. Let's try it out. And there is our first beam getting from the tower to our mansion. It's beautiful! It looks really good. I think I have to beef it out a little bit, but otherwise I am super happy with how it turned out. That took a lot longer than I thought, to be honest, to get the first one set up. But okay, I have 3 more to do, and then we're gonna turn it to nighttime and take a look at the full effect. So I know you guys can't see my face right now, but this turned out amazing. I mean, look at it. The towers, and then I added this little extra effect around the mansion using an armor stand trick that I cover in my spheres and circles tutorial. But basically all we do is we have an armor stand rotating here and also changing its head angle, and it's gonna create a sphere of particles around the mansion. That looks so cool. Can you see it in my face? So while I was building this whole thing, I was thinking a little bit about game design, because after all, we are building a quest that players are gonna come in and play. And what's the point of the towers if players can just stroll into the mansion and start doing the puzzle? Like, there's no point at all. So I started thinking to myself, what if at nighttime the towers show up, but the mansion does not? So all you see is this particle effect around the mansion, or where the mansion should be. And players are going to have to defeat all 4 towers to break the spell, and then they can enter the mansion at nighttime, and then they can solve the puzzle. And that's logically, that makes a lot of sense. But then you're probably thinking to yourself, whoa, wait a second, that puzzle takes a lot of time. And the second that it's daytime, then the mansion goes away and the puzzle goes away, and players are not going to have a whole lot of time. That's going to be really frustrating, right? Yes. But then I started thinking, what if when the players get into the mansion, they find a magic wand? Like, we'll call it the Wand of Midnight or something. And when they hold the wand, it keeps the time set to midnight. So it kind of like freezes time, and it gives them all the time that they need to solve this puzzle in one night. And then they get this really cool magic item as a part of progressing in the quest. I think that's a great way to solve this problem, because the players do have to accomplish a lot in one night. And I think this is kind of a cool way of handling that mechanic. All right, guys, it's time to put ourselves in the shoes of an adventurer. So let's just put ourselves into adventure mode, and now we are in some real danger. We're gonna have to take care of these towers that are keeping the mansion from appearing so that we can get to the next layer of the dungeon. So at some point, players probably are going to read some books or lore, or maybe there's a character in the bar that gives them a hint. Eventually, players are going to figure out those towers have got to go, and only during the night. So they're going to make their way up this path that I just made here to kind of bring them up the cliffside. So once they get up the cliffside, they're going to get this beautiful view of the town and the towers and the spell, and I can't get over how much I love it. Oh, I got to watch out for phantoms though. Okay, it's probably safer inside the tower, so let's go ahead and start this first tower here. So these towers summon monsters in waves. Ha! These are skeletons with axes. This is so silly. I didn't know you could do this. And so we're gonna have to defeat the waves from each of the levels until we can get to the top of the tower. And once we get to the top of the tower, we're going to have to destroy an end crystal with a snowball. Ah, this is the final guy. Hello? Ah, he didn't notice me. Okay, tower number 1, defeated. Nice, and let's get our loot. Ooh, a whole bunch of stuff. And on to tower 2. So I tried to randomize the monsters a little bit in these towers, so that way there's a little bit of variety. Tower number 2, complete. And we grab our fragments and some loot. On to tower number 3. And if you didn't notice, I had to set the time back to midnight before the town turned over again. Tower number 3, complete. And we grab our loot and some pants. Tower number 4. And you notice the beams are actually disappearing from the towers as we defeat them too. Nice little touch. So this one's gonna concern some people. There's gonna be a little bit of a wither. Oh, that's interesting. He's loose. That's not good. Okay, maybe I don't put a wither in the last tower. And we change that to a wither skeleton. Yep, I definitely beat him fair and square. But what's more important is that our mansion has appeared after the 4 towers have been defeated. Perfect. So you may notice I have a clock in my hand. That's because it's time to do the interior. Let's go! Well, I hope you enjoyed that time lapse. I realize I have a lot to learn about interiors. They take a ton of time, patience, and creativity. Like, for instance, this boxing ring. Why is it in the roof of this mayor's attic in his haunted mansion? You're gonna have to wait till the next episode to find out. In the next episode, we are gonna build a procedurally generated dungeon, also known as the Catacombs. And that is going to be a huge project, so I am so excited to get started on that. If you guys like this content, please leave a like down below. And if you want to see more of this content in the future, consider subscribing. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye!